Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Barbarians at the Gates. This is a game designed by Chris Van Beerden and published by Compass Games. This game is headed to Kickstarter, but for those who are not already aware, Compass already has these games printed and they're ready to go. They just like to use Kickstarter as an extra marketing push to expand their audience a little bit. So they sent me a copy of this and we're going to take a look inside so you can see what you have to look forward to when you back the game. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. Barbarians at the Gates is a card-driven game for two players set in the final decades of the Western Roman Empire. The Roman player commands legions loyal to the failing central authority and is aided by those Germanic tribes who have settled peacefully within the empire. Opposed, the barbarian player leads usurper emperors and controls the migrations of the savage, unyielding Germanic peoples. Containing 7 scenarios ranging from 2 turns to the full 11-turn campaign game, Barbarians at the Gates offers a game for a weekday evening or a weekend day. And you can see at the top here it gives the decades covered: 337 AD, 364, 397, and 442. So look at the map, the counters, and then the cards down here. The complexity is rated as medium. Time scale is 1 turn equals 10 years. Map scale is point-to-point map of the Western Roman Empire. Unit scale is 5,000 to 10,000 troops per combat unit. It is for 1 to 2 players. Suitability for solitaire is medium. Average time to play is 2 to 5 hours. And it is for ages 14 and up. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. All right, we get our 2 decks of cards. Pair of dice, sealed for freshness. Rulebook, playbook, player aid cards, counter sheets, which are nicely cut and pre-rounded, no clipping needed, and our mounted map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the mounted map that comes with the game. It is a beautifully done map. I love the color palette. It's very evocative of the era that the game is set in. The right-hand side, you have all the charts and tables that you'll need on the board for you. The siege table, the combat table, and the attrition table, as well as the leader activation table. You'll notice both sides have the tables facing them, so that way it's easier to just reference them during gameplay. You also have displaced leaders box, the deck and discard box on the right-hand bottom, and then the Eastern Roman Empire box, and then the further east box on the top. Top middle, we have the Roman victory points and plunder track. Then we have the tribal alignment track, the provincial control track, and the turn track down the bottom left-hand side. Throughout the map, you're going to see it's point-to-point movement. You'll see different spaces. These circle spaces are cultivated spaces. These squares are walled cities. These diamond-shaped spaces here are border spaces, and then these brown dots are transit spaces. The blue spaces are port spaces, and capitals are underlined and bold, so it's easy to follow and easy to read on the map. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. On the first one, we have the sequence of play, which lists out all 7 steps in the sequence of play. Then we have reinforcements and how those are handled, the raid table and plunder track, your sieges, which give you the siege procedure, your DRMs, lifting and ending your siege. On the next sheet, we have the steps for your strategy card play as well as your action rules at the bottom. And we have breakdowns for steps for battle, battle ties, victory, interception and avoiding battle, stacking, migration, and usurpation. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. At the top, we have the Loyalist Roman units. Underneath that, we have Colonia and Castra, which are fortification counters, and then the walled city counters. At the very bottom, we have under siege and Byzantine forces who are controlled by the Romans. On the back of the Roman counters, we have the usurper forces, which are controlled by the barbarians. And again, we see the Colonia and Castra as well as the walled city. So that way, when these spaces are converted, you can easily mark them as under control of the barbarians/usurpers. Again, at the bottom, the Byzantine markers. On the next counter sheet, we have barbarian forces as well as tribal markers and some administrative counters at the bottom. And on the reverse, we have allied barbarian counters, which are going to be controlled by the Romans. On the next sheet, we have control markers for both the Romans and the barbarians. And on the final sheet, we have Roman emperors and leaders, as well as some barbarian leaders. And on the reverse side, we have the Usurper Emperor counters. Next, we'll take a look at the strategy cards that come with the game. At the top, we have the Roman cards, and below that, we have the Barbarian cards. At the top left, we have the ops value of the card. To the right, we have the event name, and then the event text is below that. At the very bottom, we have the deck and card number, and there are 5 different decks in the game: Prelude, Core, First Wave, Second Wave, and Third Wave. And you'll see some of these cards have splash colors behind them. The blue here is a reaction card. This is going to be used by the non-phasing player as a reaction to the phasing player during their impulse. The black splash card is going to be a battle card, and both players will have those. Both players will also have the blue. The red here is only for the Barbarian, and those are invasion cards. This is how they're going to enter new tribal markers and Barbarian leaders into the game, and as I said, only the Barbarians will have them. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 44-page full-color rulebook. Inside of the front cover, we have the introduction, then we have the component breakdown, and then we have all the counters in the game. Remember, Rome versus the Barbarians. The Loyalists, red, are Romans. Then you have the Byzantine units, which are going to be allied with the Loyalists, the Romans. Barbarians are going to be controlling the usurpers, and then when they flip to go with the Romans, they're going to be flipped over to red, and they'll be allied with the Loyalists. So easy to remember. Red and purple are going to be together, and then the gray units are going to be together. So that's how to remember, just like we saw on the counters when we looked at them. Barbarian tribe track. Then we have the map breakdown so you can understand all the different segments of the map. The cultivated spaces, walled cities, border spaces, all the things we already talked about. Provinces, the provincial control track, connection types, the zones. All those are explained to you, the combat units. And then you have your leaders and emperors over here. The overall commander and subordinate leaders, and then we get into the cards. We talked about those before when we looked at them. We have the ops value, the event, and then the deck that it is part of. The Castra and Colonia, and then the walled city spaces, and then your admin counters here. Get into the terminology here on page 11. Further breakdown of the cards, which we talked about, the battle cards, response cards, the invasion cards. And we have the automatic victory, game end victory, and the sequence of play is laid out for you here on page 14. And it starts off there with the different phases: draw phase, strategy phase, attrition, control, migration, scoring, and the reinforcement phase, along with a couple of illustrated examples. A couple more text examples on the next page. Then we get into the decks and how those are put together, shuffled, drawn. Then you have your tribal reserves, timing for response events, battle events, invasion events, removed events, and then political support, stacking, how that's handled in the game, movement, force composition, picking up and dropping off units, movement allowance, action point allocation, and action point expenditure. Another text example there. Then we have movement restrictions, reaction, fortified spaces, battle, whether you can refuse battle or not, tribal migration overrun, Barbarian tribal subjugation, allied tribal subjugation, then the campaign events. Then we get into the combined attack with an illustrated example here. A couple more text examples, how to avoid battles and interceptions. Get into restrictions, procedures, penalty for failure, interception, when to intercept, restrictions on that, the procedure and successes. Then we get into the battle sequencing on page 27. How to use your battle cards, your combat superiority, your combat table, all that's explained to you. Resolution, adding your DRMs, winning the battles, retreating with an illustrated example, win or retreat, retreat in fortified spaces, and then plunder. Of course, everybody wants to plunder after you win, right? Movement continuation, sieges, the whole procedure for sieges, conversion, so you can convert your spaces when you take them over, migration and conversion, conversion in the plunder track, and then special movement raiding, your plunder track. There's your raiding steps over here. Then we have an illustrated example here. We've got force marched and a text example of that. Invasion, the settlement and procedure. Another illustrated example here. Activation by a Roman player, activation by the Barbarian player. Regaining control, migration, your activation strategy and migration phase, migration procedure, and then special powers for the Britons. Then for the usurper faction, successful usurpation, and then the usurpation ends. And then control. And then we get to the index here on page 42. And then we are at the back of the rulebook where we have the credits. And lastly, we'll take a look at the playbook. This is a 30-page full-color book. Inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents listing out all the scenarios, as well as the additional information in this book. We have the extended example of play, gazetteer, card clarifications, designer's notes, credits, and the bibliography. We jump right into the first scenario, the Successor Strife, 337 to 363. The First Migration, 364 to 410. Then we have the Gothic Invasions, 389 to 440. The Final Decline, 428 to 476. The Germanic Invasions, 364 to 440. This is a tournament scenario. The Barbarian Invasions, 364 to 476. You can see each one of them has their own special scenario rules, which may override the actual rules in the book. Then we have Barbarians at the Gates, 337 to 476 to finish out the scenarios in the book. And then we have the extended example of play starting on page 16. This is going to walk you through all the steps of this game here. It's going to be using the Barbarians Invasion scenario, and it's going to walk you through all the steps for each player. So that way you can easily follow along and understand what all the steps are by doing it on the map yourself. You can just put out the pieces that they're using and follow right along so you can see the procedures and how everything is handled. So it makes it easier for you to jump into the game. And we go all the way through to the turn 2 reinforcement phase. So you actually get 2 full turns. So that's a good amount of turns to give you a good feeling for the game right out of the box. Then the Gazetteer gives you the province, the historical name, and then the actual name. So that way you can match up the historical name with the names that we're familiar with today. Then we have card clarifications to help you understand the cards better. Then we have the designer's notes, and that completes the rest of the playbook. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Barbarians at the Gates. This is a game designed by Chris Van Beurden and published by Compass Games. As I said before, this game's going on Kickstarter. It may actually be on there right now. I'm not sure the exact timing of the Kickstarter, but Compass did send me a copy of the game so I can do a preview and show you what is inside the box and what the game's all about. So that way you get a better idea as to whether you want to back the game or not. For those not familiar with Compass, the reason why I've got the game here and they've got the game on Kickstarter is when they put a game on Kickstarter, it's really to attract other people, other gamers that are not familiar with Compass games. They've got the game ready. They're just kind of getting that last marketing push and trying to bring in some new backers to the games, new customers that haven't seen these games before. So more exposure, it's a good thing for them. So when you back this game and they say it's going to get to you pretty quickly, it is. It's already done, as you can see here. And it's fantastic quality production. Love these counters. They punch real easy. Trust me, I knocked a few of them out. I had to put them back in already. They're pre-rounded and they come out real easy. The map, just a gorgeous map. And the rules, you got your playbook and some background information to the era and things like that. So overall, a great package. If you're into this era, Roman era, and you want to check out a strategy game for this era, outstanding game. 2-player game, can also be played solitaire, and I think it would be great, both solitaire and 2-player. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out for sure. And I hope this answers any questions you may have before you back the game. Well, I hope this helps you guys out if you'd be curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.